for announcements. I am now gonna introduce our guest speakers today. Um, I apologize if I mispronounce your names. Today we have Megan Kozlowski and Rachel Ahern from the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. Both of our guest speakers today are um, admissions and enrollment counselors slash coordinators here at the Carver College of Medicine. And they're going to be giving a presentation on the application process and how to navigate your path to medical school. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to them.
Awesome. Thanks for the warm welcome, Aaron, and thanks to all of you who have joined us. As Aaron mentioned, I'm Rachel, and my colleague Megan is here too. And we're going to be chatting with you about all things kind of navigating your path to medical school. So as I give a quick overview, let's see if I can get my slides to progress here. There we go. I'm going to throw a quick question in the chat just to get everybody warmed up and get you thinking and kind of in the right mindset of all the things that we're going to chat about tonight. So the question I put in the chat is asking, what qualities do you think make a good physician? So please feel free to throw any and all thoughts that come to mind in the chat just so that we can get a good idea of what you think. Compassionate, thanks Lisa. A good listener, caring. Empathetic.
Problem solver,
Yeah.
empathetic. These are good ones. A leader.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you to those of you that shared. Yep, strong work ethic. That's another great one. Please feel free to keep throwing those in there if you think of any other qualities that you think make a good physician. But we just wanted to provide you with a quick overview of the things that we'll cover with you during our presentation tonight. So we're going to focus a lot on advice for students who are interested in applying to medical school and talking about things that make a strong applicant, ways that you can stay on track, and just things to look out for and be mindful of as you progress throughout this process. We'll have a quick activity in the middle just to kind of put all the things that you've learned from us into practice. And then, of course, if you have questions along the way or at the end, we're, of course, happy to answer those for you as we go.
Okay, well, to get us started, we love dogs. We just can't get enough, and we appreciate good quotes. So we thought we'd start it off with this adorable picture here. You might see a few too many dogs in this presentation. So this says, some people walk in the rain, others just get wet. Our goal here tonight is to make it so that you're not just getting wet, right? You're going to get the tools that you need to have a strong application, to know what it means to be a competitive applicant for medical school. We don't want you to be going at this blindly. We're happy to share what we know and answer your questions. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll feel like you have the umbrella and the galoshes and you're all set and ready to go.
Awesome. So continuing. Oh, I'm sorry, Megan.
That's okay. Yeah, so we also wanted to share some quotations from our medical students. You know, Rachel and I love what we do. We get to talk with students just like you all the time. People who are really passionate about giving back, about helping. They're highly motivated, and it gives us joy and energy to work with students like you. So we thought we'd reach out to our current students and see what they had to say when we asked them questions like, what motivates you through challenging times in medical school? What did they have to say? So one of our M2s, which is a second-year medical student, said, what I'm learning today might save someone else's life in the future. I'll have a rewarding career in the future, so I need to be prepared for what I will face. So kind of keeping that perspective in mind and the importance of why you're going through this rigor as a medical student. I think that's something that's really important. That's why we're trying to encourage you to get those experiences early on so you have that motivation that can help you get through medical school. So that's what Nick said. Corey said, I'm motivated by the future opportunity to practice medicine and the responsibility to treat patients. I'm also motivated by my friends and family who form an important resource of support. So I think that's another good point, kind of remembering you're not doing this alone, that you need to pull on other people, form a good network right now. I think groups just like you're in right here, the MAPS group, is a great place to go where you can find support and people who have common interests, so you can help each other through this process. Thanks, Rach.
Awesome, thank you. So continuing with the dog pictures and the dog theme that we love so much, we often like to refer to applying to medical school as going on a journey. And so something else that, we love the outdoors, and so we're going to use this theme of, going on a journey. And if you're thinking about how to prepare for that, so needing to map your route and think about, what it's going to take and what it will generally look like for you to achieve this goal and to meet your final destination. Being sure to check the weather and pack your supplies, and making sure that you're prepared for unforeseen things and for all the tools that you'll need to have a successful journey. Being aware of your surroundings, finding a companion to join you. And so, this is a great group to be part of because you all have a similar goal in mind, and you're all here to support each other along your journey, and make sure that, you're all aware of the resources to help you be successful. And that kind of goes along with, waving at other boats that are passing by and lending a hand to those who need help. And so that's just being a good team member and a good support system for others who need you, and hopefully you'll have that support in return. So just kind of a good mindset to think about embarking on this journey for applying to medical school. So as you kind of prepare for your journey, this is a good just kind of general overview of things to look out for and what our admissions committee for medical school is looking for. And so these 6 boxes are kind of the basis of our mission statement at the Carver College of Medicine. And so these are kind of the core concepts or overarching themes of things that make a strong applicant and good qualities to have. So showing high moral character and showing that you're an upstanding person, and that you're altruistic, and that you're caring and enthusiastic and compassionate, and really can just show that you can handle caring and working with other people. Having the ability to communicate with others in a sensitive and caring way. I know someone in the chat mentioned, Susan mentioned empathetic. And so being able to communicate with all different patients in all different situations, and being a good listener and interacting with them is important. Being dedicated to the idea of service, again, going back to that strong sense of altruism and really caring about helping other people, giving back to other people and helping them in whatever way that is. Having a commitment to diversity and inclusion, and understanding that the patients and individuals that you interact with as a physician are coming from all different backgrounds, situations, with different factors that impact their health, and being aware of those and helping to combat those and support those individuals is really important. Being a good leader and a team player. These are 2 qualities that strong physicians often possess. Being able to work with other members of a healthcare team each and every day, and really being able to be a leader and step up and assume responsibility in certain situations is a great quality to have, and great things to be practicing and thinking about now. And then just being able to embrace your background and your strengths and your experiences. We often tell applicants that there is no such thing as a cookie cutter method for applying to medical school, that everybody's got their own motivations, their own backgrounds, and things that you've done along your journey to help you get to the point of applying. And so you should certainly always embrace those things and help the committee to get to know you through the things that you've done, the experiences that you've had, and why you want to pursue this dream.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so we're going to dive just a little bit deeper into these ideas here. So we've put up some different qualities and things that we're looking for in the selection guidelines when we review applications. So I think a good way to approach this is to remember we're trying to answer a few basic questions. So how do you spend your time, right? We want to know how you're spending your time, and some things that you might be doing that you think aren't relevant necessarily to medical school might build on some of those pieces that Rachel was just talking about. So we'll go through that in a second. But how are you spending your time? Are you a helper and a giver? We need people who are going to give back to society. It's just in their blood to want to help other people and be a part of a community there. And then the final piece is, how do you know that medicine is right for you? So showing us that you've been in different scenarios where you've been able to see the behind the scenes portions, and that you know that being a physician is the right path for you. So the last thing we want is for you to get into medical school, to have not done your research, figure out this isn't for you. Now, you might have a lot of student debt and your choices are to become a doctor or win the lotto. We don't want that to happen, okay? We want you to do the research ahead of time. This is a really large commitment. It's a lifetime commitment. So it'll help you to do this research and make sure this is truly what you want to do, because when times get tough, you can go back to those things like our students were saying, why am I doing this? To get you through those difficult times in medical school when things seem really challenging. So kind of reviewing the types of things we're looking for. So how do you spend your time? What kinds of activities are we looking for? We want you to definitely spend time donating your time to other people, right? So volunteering. It's great to see if you have some experience in a clinical or medical setting, but also other experiences outside. Remember, I said we're looking to see if you're a helper or a giver. So please use your avenues here. So if you're really interested in a certain hobby or sport, maybe you can teach another kid to play or a team to play soccer or something like that, right? So you can build on your own interests and share that with other people. Then you're volunteering, you're teaching, and you're giving back. So all things we're looking for, right? So I think that would be a really great example of something you could do in addition to volunteering at the hospital or, and we know that things are a little tough right now with COVID, trying to find experiences. So this is the perfect time to try to be creative and say, well, what am I really interested in and how can I combine that with volunteering? So we've heard some really creative responses to that, and a lot of them involve combining hobbies with giving back. And the other pieces, maybe you could help with like a crisis hotline that's over text, or doing different things, delivering groceries to folks who can't get to the store right now and things like that, that just show you're trying to help out and you're paying attention to what society needs right now too. So those are definitely things we're looking for. Remember, we talked about showing us that the medical field is right for you. So the way you could do that is by shadowing, volunteering, in medical settings, maybe getting a clinical position. That would be great as well. So something like a CNA or a scribe. Start thinking about what you want to do over the summer. It's always good to build those experiences now. We want you to have a better understanding of what it's like to be a physician and to be able to articulate why this is the career path for you. The way you're able to do that is by gaining all of these experiences. Okay. So other things, Erin was mentioning that you could apply to be on the exec board. That would be the perfect kind of experience that we would be looking for, right? So you're helping your peers. You're probably learning a lot along the way of what it means to be a competitive applicant, and you're helping others. You're bringing them along with you, just like Rachel said when we had the dog in the boat slide. So that kind of encompasses all of the types of things that we're looking for. So that would be a great idea. When we think about what are you involved in, how are you spending your time, saying I'm a member of MAPS is great. It shows that you were able to get some experiences, that you were surrounding yourself with other people who are interested in medicine, but it doesn't say as much as you saying I helped to organize a couple of events or join the leadership board or something like that. So always try to take that step up if it's something that you're involved in, so that you can get some leadership and additional experience. That would be really great. Of course, we are looking for academics. There's not a magic number. You can look at averages of who we admit, but like Rachel was saying, everybody's story is different, and our review is holistic. So we're not just looking at one piece and saying absolutely not. In most cases, there are definitely limits with GPA and MCAT and things like that, but those are the minimums, right? And you never want to aim for the minimums because it's usually a very rare case where someone with the minimums is admitted, because the rest of their application has to be incredibly strong. There's not a lot of room for error. So you don't want to put yourself in that position. You don't necessarily have to be at that average or above. Just do your best and also show that you're a well-rounded applicant. Another thing that's really important is the quality of your written work. We'll talk about that later, but just being able to express on paper and in person why you want to be a physician and showing examples of how you care for others and are empathetic. We need to be able to hear that passion in your writing and also in person when you interview with us. Are there other things, Rachel, that you'd like to touch on?
I think those are I think we'll touch on a lot of it later. I think this is a good kind of recap of everything.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to kind of take a second in a few minutes to put everything that we've talked about so far into practice. So Megan just mentioned that our admissions committee utilizes that idea of holistic review when they are reviewing applications and who they are initially considering to invite for interview and eventually admission down the road. And so we're going to do a little activity where we're going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of an admissions committee. And so we're going to present you with these 6 applicants and some information about them. And so what we want you to do is read through these applicants, and we'll give you a few minutes to read through these credentials and these 3 bullet points. And we know that we only give you 3 bullet points, so it's not a ton of information, and there's certainly a lot more information in an actual medical school application, but do your best. Think about all the great things that Megan just mentioned for kind of viewing a well-rounded applicant, and we'll give you a couple minutes, and whenever you're ready, if you wouldn't mind putting the 2 individuals you would want to invite for an interview into the chat, we'd love to hear who you pick. There we go. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so 2 votes for Bailey. Remember, you can pick 2 applicants who you'd like to invite for interview. Bailey and Chris. Bailey and Alex. Bailey and Jamie. Awesome. There we go. We're rolling in with answers now. Alex and Taylor, Bailey and Alex, Bailey and Taylor. Awesome. All righty. Great. Sorry, I'm just reading through some of these here.
Lots of Bailey.
Yeah, lots and lots of Bailey. And Taylor too, and Alex. Awesome. Well, thanks to you all who, submitted those and read through this. And, we know this activity can be kind of difficult because, one, you're only given a little bit of context about these applicants. And, I think we do this activity a lot with different groups, and it's interesting to see the different responses that come through. But I would say most commonly we see a mix of Jamie, Taylor, and Bailey that typically come through. And I think it's important to remember that there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer for this activity, but we just want you to be thinking about how well-rounded are these applicants based on the information that you're given. And with, the other applicants that are listed in this activity, it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with these applicants. It just might mean that we need more information and we need to dive deeper into their application to learn a little bit more about them. And I think it's interesting, Megan mentioned this earlier, that it's not all, numbers are not the magical thing that's going to get you into medical school. When you look at Taylor and Jamie and Bailey, they certainly do not have a straight 4.0 GPA and have, either above average or average MCAT scores. And so they've either got leadership experience, like being on the exec board of the biology student organization, or they've put themselves in the healthcare environment, or they've been volunteering and or teaching and, put themselves in a variety of activities just to give them that good sense of well-roundedness. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that the others don't have that, but we might just need to dive a little bit deeper into their applications. Megan, any other points that you'd add to this?
No, and I think you all did a great job. And it feels like you have probably taken away from this that it's not just straight numbers, that
Right.
it's not just being in an activity, right? But what did you contribute and what did you learn? So that's kind of where other pieces of the application will be really important, where we say, okay, you're fluent in 3 languages and spent a year abroad. That itself isn't going to do anything for you necessarily, but how do you describe that experience? What did you learn? So just like Rachel was saying, we need to know more, and that'll be up to you to share that information. But on the surface, that doesn't necessarily mean you'd be a good fit for medical school. We'll need to know more. So think about how you're explaining things. A really good tip for you all is now is the time to start journaling. I promise you will thank your your future self will thank your current self, whatever. So do this when you are participating in an activity, you get home that night, reflect on how it made you feel, right? And what did you enjoy about it? And sometimes it's not the actual act of going out there and volunteering, but more how it makes you feel afterwards. If the event itself wasn't something that was really fun, but gosh, you feel like you did some good in the world. That's great. So take notes on those sorts of things. And also that might be a good way to figure out what it is you do like to participate in exactly, because you certainly don't need to waste time in activities that you don't enjoy. There are probably other things out there for you. So the more you kind of dive into different activities and test them out, you can find something that really resonates with you and then dedicate more time with that activity. That would be really good advice rather than trying to do a bunch of different things.
I think that's a good point, Megan. And, just knowing that it's so much more than checking off boxes of what you think you should do and what you think will look good. You're going to get a lot more out of the activities that you actually look forward to going to or have fun when you're doing or are constantly learning from, and will in turn have a lot more to write about in your application at that point too. Awesome. Well, thank you for your participation in that activity. There we go.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to move on to kind of how do you keep the path here? What's going to keep you on track? So we've talked about academics a little bit, keeping your grades up. I think something that's good to note is that you never get a second chance at your undergrad GPA. It doesn't mean if there are hiccups along the way, you can't recover. But I do want you to think about that as you're saying, well, should I join this club or go to this meeting or whatever, right? You do have to be mindful that that's your one shot at that undergraduate GPA. So you want to have, if you can, an upward trend to show that you're continuing to learn new study skills. You're able to keep up even as the classes get harder. So sometimes often we'll see folks with kind of a lower GPA freshman year, especially as they're getting adjusted and then things go up. That shows resilience. So that's really great. It would be great for you to explain that on your application. What did you learn and how can you use those skills when you enter medical school? If your GPA is low, you might consider pursuing a post-bac or a master's program. So you can overcome a low GPA, but you do have to do some more work there. So if you can keep your GPA up, please do. It is important. Otherwise, you'll have to probably take more classes afterward just to show that you can be successful in those high level science courses. And what we're really focusing on, we look at your overall GPA, but we really focus in on the biology, chemistry, physics, and math GPA. So those courses are especially important. Also, one bad grade isn't going to sink you, okay? So don't freak out if you have one poor experience with the class. We're always here to answer questions if you have specific questions, but I don't want you to think, now I can't go to medical school because I got a C or whatever in this certain class. That's absolutely not the case, okay? So we're happy to advise on those sorts of things too. Same with kind of the MCAT. So when you take the MCAT, if it's not the score that you want or you think that you can get, you think you can do better, it's okay. You can take it again. So give yourself the time to prepare. Just like an upward trend in GPA, if we see a lot of growth in a second MCAT, we're going to look upon that favorably With that said, don't go bomb an MCAT in order to show giant growth. That's not the goal. You don't want to take this exam twice if you don't have to. But again, just like one bad grade or one bad semester, it's not going to sink you. You just have to show you can be successful. Okay. So yeah, hopefully that helps on that side. Okay, so other things here. So how can you keep on this path? Gaining experiences, not checking off a box like Rachel said, being passionate about what you're doing and being mindful about what you're learning. Another great thing to note is making good connections along the way. So remember, as part of this application, you'll need to have letters of recommendation. Part of that is building good rapport with other folks. And I think some of that is entering into spaces in a genuine manner. So if you were going to apply for the exec board for maths, you'd want to do it because you want to do it, right? And you'd want to form bonds with people in a genuine way. Same sort of thing if you were going to be a tutor, if you were taking on a clinical position. If you enter into that in a really genuine way, you get to know people, you form warmer relationships with them, you care about them and they care about you. Those are going to be the folks that are probably going to write very strong letters because they're going to feel passionately about hoping that you succeed, right? They're going to be invested in your success. So I think that's another great thing when you're walking through these experiences. You're not checking off a box, you're trying to build relationships. You also can build really great connections. So if you're working in a clinical setting and you're working alongside a doctor, you might have a really great opportunity to ask, is there any way you could shadow that physician? Or you're really interested in some sort of medicine, right? You're really interested in dermatology. Do they happen to know a dermatologist that you could reach out to so that you could potentially shadow or conduct an informational interview with? And then when you reach out to that person, you can say, hey, I was working with Dr. Smith earlier today, and she said that you would be a great point of contact. So you're building on that network. And if that person is genuinely invested in you, then they're going to share that information with you. And then hopefully their connection will say, well, if Dr. Smith said that this person should reach out, I think I should definitely talk with him or her, that sort of thing. So you're building those bonds and connections. And always being mindful and courteous of other folks. So every interaction is an important interaction. You don't want to burn any bridges. That might sound like pretty simple advice, but just being really aware of that sort of thing, because you never know what a relationship can bring or what kind of connection you can get from it. But also, you just want to be that genuine good person that's giving out into the world what you want to receive. Good. Anything I missed on here, Rach?
I think just something else to add that we get a lot of questions about, especially this cycle, is gaining experiences during the pandemic. And what do I do when it's hard to be in the clinic or maybe volunteer or shadowing experiences have been put on hold? And, the best pieces of advice that we can give to you is to be as creative as you can. And even if it's not clinically related experiences, put on your thinking cap and, are there any ways that you can volunteer out in your community? Or maybe you are helping to tutor kids who are doing virtual school, or maybe we've had applicants who learned how to sew and had been making masks during the pandemic and donating those masks. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer for the things that you're doing. Maybe you are volunteering for a crisis hotline or the text hotline that's kind of in the virtual environment. It's really just about not being stagnant and working to be creative and continue to be productive and add to your application in some way, even if it's not the original way or your original plan that you intended it to be.
Another good piece of advice that reminds me of is take some time to reflect and think about times when you may have struggled and what you wish you would have had at that moment. Can you be that person and can you step in and help other people? That's a really genuine way to enter into a space. And this is kind of the perfect time to do it, right? You're searching for these creative things. If you're passionate about it, that's going to show. We're going to be impressed with your efforts. So that might be another way to start to think about, what could I do what moments did you wish somebody could have helped you through? And do you feel like you have the ability to reach out and help others in a meaningful way there? Okay, so this is mine, right, Rach?
Yeah, yep.
I'll take it.
Okay.
So another really important point, we talked about this a little bit before, but on your application, the quality of your writing and what you're saying is really going to matter. So a lot of our applicants don't realize that the folks that will either admit or deny you admission, they never get to meet you. So the way that they hear your words are literally through your application. It's like your interview with the committee, everything you're writing, your personal statement, the descriptions of your activities, your responses to the secondary questions, that's where they hear your voice. Really, really important, okay? So they hear from you there. Then they hear from your recommenders who hopefully are backing you up and they're saying, gosh, we could not have done this without this person. We're so happy that we had her on our team, right? Then they're also hearing feedback from the folks that you met with during your interview. So they're talking about if they thought you would be a good classmate, if you explained why you're interested in medicine, if you had thoughtful answers and good examples to back up what you were saying and those sorts of things. So getting back to the writing piece, that's so important, and I think a lot of folks don't quite realize that. So I don't know what point you're at in your path here, how soon you'll be applying, but it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with what the AMCAS application looks like. So that's the application you'll use to apply to medical school. And you'll use the same personal statement for everybody. You'll use a description of the activities that you've been involved in. You can list up to 15 activities. So that's a lot of space to work with. What you want to tell us in the activities portion is what you participated in and what you learned, what you got out of that experience, why it matters, kind of the so what, right? A lot of people make the mistake of just putting in bullet points during those activity descriptions. It feels really cold and doesn't give us much to work with. So if that's the time for us to hear your voice and you just use bullet points, that's not very friendly, personable, memorable. It doesn't bring us into your experience. So try to avoid doing that. You'll be asked to pull out up to 3 most memorable experiences, and you get a little bit more room to write about those. So that's a great opportunity to tell us some more detail about the experience and what you learned. We definitely advise picking out at least one medically related experience. So some folks make the mistake of listing that I was on the basketball team, I was a member of a certain club, and I studied abroad, but none of them have anything to do with medicine. So at least one should have to deal with medicine since you're applying to medical school. So that's our pro tip for you there. Let's see, and then the secondary questions, so those are questions that you get from individual schools. So if you apply to Carver, you'll probably get a question that says something like, why do you want to come to Carver? Why are you interested in our program? And you'll probably see something for every school you apply to that is like that. Shows that you've done your research, that you're not just saying, I'm from Iowa, or I went to the University of Iowa, or I'm from Illinois and you're conveniently located for me. And none of that says anything about why you care about our program. And some of it might be that you care about the residents of Iowa, that you want to give back. That's a different statement than just you're conveniently located. So yeah, I think you should take advantage, if you are here, take advantage of learning more about the program. It's great that you're going to have medical students come in, run a CDL with you. They're going to be able to share experiences that they've had, show you what the learning is like at Carver so that you can see if this is a good fit for you, that collaborative type of learning where you're building off of what one person says and working as a team, right? So I think things like that, trying to figure out if this is a good fit for you and showing us you've done your research and that you've gone beyond that first page of the website. So yes, we know you're excited about the New Horizons curriculum. We are too, but go further than that and show us that you've really found something that strikes a chord with you. So for instance, I bet the students who are running the CBL for you next time, they're probably, or whenever they're coming in, it didn't sound like it was too long from now, they're probably part of the distinction track. That's the teaching distinction track. And they want to learn how to be good teachers and educators. My guess is they probably want to work for a teaching hospital or have some form of teaching as part of their career. So if you know that's something that you're really passionate about, or if there's another distinction track that really appeals to you, so that's like a minor in medical school. Most schools don't have those kind of programs. Then tell us about that, right? And shows you've done your research and you've gone beyond that first page of the website.
We also host a podcast
Oh yeah.
that's called the Short Coat Podcast. And you can find this on Spotify, Apple Music. It's on the internet too. You can pretty much find it anywhere where you can stream. But this is a good way, if you're into podcasts, that you can hear from current medical students who are living the Carver experience, and they're doing different things, and they're talking about a variety of different topics, life in medical school, those kinds of things. But also on the podcast, they have, different physicians or healthcare professionals who are coming in and talking about different topics. So yes, it's a great way to hear from medical students, but it's also a good way, especially if you're not able to be in the hospital or in the clinical setting right now, to stay current and up to date on different topics and issues within the healthcare system, just to stay relevant with that, and is a good way to really immerse yourself in the things that Carver has to offer. So if you're interested in that, I'll put the website link in the chat here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And it's very enjoyable. I think it's a way to be surrounded by medical students and hear about their experiences, so you know kind of what you're getting into. They might also talk about topics that you didn't even think of.
Yeah.
And now next time you walk into a shadowing experience or a volunteer experience, you can talk with the people that you're working with and ask them about that and get even more insights. I think that's a really good idea, Rach.
Thanks. Awesome. I feel good about this one if you do.
Yep, I'm good.
Very good. All righty. So we just wanted to touch on, and kind of recap a lot of the things that we've talked about so far. And Megan has done an awesome job at kind of giving different tips and tricks and things to think about in a lot of different parts of the application process. But, just to recap some things and other obstacles to look out for on your journey, kind of like we mentioned in the very beginning, not relying only on your GPA and your MCAT, and that holistic review truly means holistic review, that your academic preparedness matters, but your experiences also matter. Your words matter. The words of your recommenders matter. It's a whole process, and the whole thing is taken into consideration by the committee along the way. And just making sure, whether it comes to lower grades or MCAT scores, maybe it's like an institutional action or something that happened, just making sure that you're always leading with honesty throughout your application and explaining any trends in your GPA, any bumps in the road that you've hit along the way, and just helping the committee understand, number one, what happened, but number two, what you took away from that, how you've been able to make changes and improvements since that point to get to where you are now. So just helping to take them along the path with you and help them to understand things that have happened or bumps along the way. Something that is unique to our medical school is that Megan and I and the rest of our admissions team will conduct advising appointments with applicants who have applied and have not been successful in the process. And so we're in the thick of that right now. We do a lot of these appointments throughout the spring and early summer. And so this is a chance for an applicant to schedule an appointment with us. We will review their application and give them good feedback from the admissions committee. Things to talk about, things to remember, giving you good context and feedback on things. We take detailed notes about these conversations so that if and when a new application for an applicant comes through in a future cycle, the committee just has that much more context and just knows that applicant that much better the next time around. But that also assumes that you've taken the advice that was given to you and the feedback given to you to heart and really taken tangible steps to help improve your application and just make it stronger for the next time around. So, you know, we do this because we find it to be really valuable. Not all medical schools will offer that kind of a service, but you know, we understand that the process is tough, and if we're happy to take some time to give you some feedback, if it helps you find success later on, then there's a lot of value in that. So just know that that is something that we will do. We also meet with prospective students too. So if you have individual questions or ever want to meet with us individually down the road, you're always welcome to call or email or schedule an appointment with us too.
Rach, I know that
Oh yeah, go ahead.
that they had sent out the link for the virtual office hours too. So that's something that
Good
we've
point.
just started doing. It's been pretty popular, popular enough. So that might be something that if you have a quick question and you want to hop on, so Thursdays from 10 to 11, we can answer your question, and we can always also set up an individual appointment if you have more detailed thoughts. But I think especially as we get closer to the application cycle, we might have people popping in and just saying, I have had this one question, I just want a clear answer on that. So we're happy to answer your questions, so you don't have to stress or worry about that.
Yeah, good point. Erin, I know you have the flyer and the information for virtual office hours, so please feel free to redistribute that with everyone if you're willing.
Also, you said there are folks that are on this call that aren't from the University of
Good point.
Iowa. Anybody is welcome to hop in those.
Yeah, absolutely. And just continuing, you know, Megan mentioned this with having a healthcare related activity in your most meaningful experiences on your application, but it is really a red flag when you have not spent any time in the environment or you have not put yourself in front of the professional that you're trying to become. There's a lot of value that can come from those experiences. And so as you prepare to apply and planning out what timeline is going to be most advantageous where you are prepared and can put forth a strong application, you just want to make sure that you have enough of those healthcare related experiences to reflect upon and help you to reiterate your motivation for pursuing medicine. And this last bullet, you know, I kind of explained this earlier. If you have any institutional actions or anything, any red flags or bumps along the way, the committee just wants to know about that. And it's the same concept as reflecting on your activities, is they want to know what happened and they want to know what you've learned from it and how you've been able to positively progress from that point on. So just always, again, leading with honesty and making sure that you're taking the committee along the journey with you and helping to explain things along the way, not leaving them with any unanswered questions or something that might give them a moment of pause. And, you know, just general inconsistencies with your application. This kind of goes along the lines of having that clear and concise story. And, you know, you don't ever want them to wonder, oh, how did an applicant spend this amount of time? Or, you know, recently I can think of an example where an applicant completed their EMT certification, but they never put it into practice. And so that was a comment from a committee member wanting to know why they didn't practice or what happened where they didn't end up pursuing volunteering or employment with emergency medical services. And so, you know, just making sure that you're thinking about the things that you've done and the timeline and the activities that you're including, just to help them make sure that you're not leaving them with any unanswered questions like that, and that your story is clear and consistent with what you're putting in your activities and throughout your words too. And just having a proofreader, you know, whether you're editing your words yourself, maybe you're having multiple people edit your personal statement, which is helpful just to get some fresh eyes on that. Make sure that very simple things like spellings and punctuation are taken care of. Just putting your best foot forward and making your application as polished as you can, just to continue to help with that strength, and knowing that you've taken the time to read over your words and make sure your message is coming across exactly how you want it to be. When you list your activities in your primary application, you will report roughly the hours and the month and years, the dates that you participated in those activities. And then there's also a place within our secondary application where the committee wants to see specifically the meaningful healthcare related activities that you've pursued. And so it will state this within our secondary, but that is not a place that you want to forecast any hours. So you want to be very specific in, only including the activities and the hours that you have done at the time of application at that point in time. But you can forecast a little bit within your primary application, and within those activities, you don't want to be too crazy with it. You want to still be truthful and within reason. But in general, as many hours and activities and things that you can include on your primary application, the better. Things are much stronger, whether it's completed grades, whether it's completed activities, they're much stronger when they're included on the front end of things and in your primary application, as opposed to an academic update or an application update later on, which, it might be too late in the cycle for the committee to see that or to make a big impact on your application. So just being mindful of when you're reporting these things and when you're planning your application timeline. And Megan talked a lot earlier about, choosing letter writers who know you well. And in general, sometimes it's helpful to actually schedule a meeting, whether it's over Zoom or in person or whatever it is, with the individuals that you are asking to recommend for you, so that you can really get some good FaceTime with them, in making sure that they know that you're interested in pursuing medicine. They know exactly what type of program you're applying to, so that they can be specific in their letters. And sharing the things that you've done and why you're passionate about this, so that not only are you helping to cultivate the relationship with them and helping them to stay current in your life, but you're also helping them with good content to write about in their letters, and really helping them demonstrate that they know you well and they know the ways that they've interacted with you and the skills that you possess, and ultimately why they feel like you would be a good doctor based on the interactions they've had with you.
Rach, just one more thing. I think it's important to think about your timeline when you're applying. So I'd say a really good goal would be to get applications in by the end of August, early September, at least for Carver. Definitely by mid-October, but every minute you waste after September 1st, you're missing out on interview spots in general. So medical school is competitive enough. You don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage and enter into the cycle halfway through it. And now it's even harder for you to fight for a spot for an interview or a place in the class. So do yourself a favor and think about the timeline and do your research with how long each step will take. Because if you want to complete everything by September 1st, you should probably start in July, right? So it takes a month for us to get the application from AMCAS, and it'll take you a couple of weeks to work on the secondary and get all of your pieces in. So just be mindful of that probably starting sometime in July would be a good idea, with the goal of late August or early September if possible.
Yeah, that's a great point, Megan, and just giving yourself the benefit of time and doing yourself that favor.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All righty. So, it's one thing for us to give you all of this advice. It's another thing to actually hear advice from current medical students who have been through the process and have been successful in doing so. And you can see just 3 quotes here from some of our current medical students that have some general themes that you can also start to put into practice right now, such as that very first one, which is being ready to work hard and trying to get a good idea of what you're getting into. And that's why you are asked to shadow, and that's why you're asked to put yourself in the environment, so that you know what a physician looks like in multiple settings, and you understand what it's like to work with patients and people who are in compromised situations. And so it's putting those things into practice and really getting a good understanding before you begin the journey that is medical school. Getting into medical school is only the first step. You've got a journey, a whole other journey after you get in and progress through medical school and residency training and all of that too. Other things you can practice now is working on a good work-life balance. And that's part of why the committee really likes to see that applicants include a hobby or 2 on their application, showing that you've got a place to relieve stress and that you've got an outlet for when school gets tough or all the things that you're involved in are getting to you, that you've got something that you can kind of unwind and unplug that you enjoy doing. So working on that now and kind of getting a good idea of your balance now can only be helpful when you continue into medical school. And then just keeping the path and keeping on the journey. And as long as you stay in the race, you'll have the opportunity to make a real impact on someone and have a really rewarding career. And so this goes to say that when we say that one bad grade is not going to break you, and having, ups and downs in your journey is not going to derail you, but you want to just be able to pick yourself back up and keep going and be able to explain things to reach your goal and to reach your destination. And just some further insight into Carver specifically, and some things that our medical students really like about our curriculum or about our medical school, and partly why they chose it. Caitlin said that she really likes how cyclical the curriculum is and how you're exposed to subject matter multiple times to really help integrate it into your learning and really get it ingrained into your mind so that you are exposed to the content multiple times and really understanding. Nick said that he has just in general been surprised by how cool the backgrounds and stories of his classmates are, and how he really just thinks that they are a great group of colleagues. And Megan mentioned this earlier, that Carver is a really collaborative environment, and our medical schools really thrive off of one another and the interactions that they have in and out of the classroom or in our learning communities, or the different things that they're involved with. So that's something that we certainly pride ourselves on, and our medical students really thrive off of. And like we said in the very beginning, there is no cookie cutter method to getting into medical school. So being able to embrace your story and the things that you've done really brings a great group of people together at the end.
Great. So of course we have to end with a dog picture here. So I hope that we've given you the tools so that you feel like you're walking into this prepared, that you know what we're looking for, that you know what the important points are, the things that you need to do before you apply. And our thoughts are that you apply when you're ready, not just because you're graduating, but because you feel ready, you've done the research, you've done the work. It's your journey and story, and we want to make sure that you're ready and that you know what you're getting into and that you can communicate all of that to us. So hopefully you feel a little bit more confident here. Like Rachel said, believe in your story and really take some time to think about that and believe in yourself. And we're here to help if you have questions. You have great advisors. I know if you're at the University of Iowa, you have great health advisors. Being part of the MAPS group is a really great place to get information. So you've already taken a good step there. So we are here if you want to ask a couple of questions now, but you can also schedule an appointment or hop into those virtual office hours as well. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, we have would a speeding ticket misdemeanor affect the chances of the application? No, I think we'll be okay. Yeah, so I guess it depends. If you were going 100 over or something in a school zone, then that might have some issues, right? But in general, no, minor offenses like that. Where we see issues though are if folks have repeated offenses, even repeated speeding offenses, right? So be careful there. You want to learn your lesson. But in general, little things like that happens to everybody.
Macy, interesting question. What is the most meaningful or interesting thing you have seen on an application? Oh my gosh. Well, it's a good question, Macy.
I know. We've seen so many.
I mean, we see like interesting hobbies. Like there was yo-yoing, like they taught themselves how to yo-yo and they put that on their application. We see
I think like a lot of times when I read an application and I feel like I've entered into that person's space, like I got to know them. And then if I have a phone call with them later, I already feel like I know a lot about them and I feel connected. That means that they were a good writer, that they were able to communicate their story. And that means a heck of a lot to us. So I do take note when we see something that's well written, but not in a cliched sort of sense. So something that's very personal. And even when folks are vulnerable, So when they tell us about their experiences, so often you'll see questions like, tell us about an obstacle that you've overcome, right? And what you've learned from that, whether that's in an interview or a secondary. Sometimes people are really, really thoughtful there, and they're able to admit when they struggled and how they overcame it and where their perspective is now. Those things can be really meaningful and how they helped others through that sort of thing as well is really memorable.
Yeah, good point. We had one more question. Do letters of rec have to be from undergrad, or can they be from post-bac professors, master's program professors as well? Yes, they can be from post-bac or master's programs as well. We know sometimes applicants, depending on their situation, are a little bit farther removed from undergrad or removed from school in general, and that can be difficult to maintain those relationships. So if you've entered a post-bac or master's program, that's an acceptable form of an academic letter too. We can also count research PIs or supervisors as an academic letter as well. So I think that's something, if you're involved in research, to consider if you're looking for that academic component of things too. Good question.
Yeah.
All right, well, we want to be mindful of your time here. I know it's 7 o'clock, so I put an email address, COM, it stands for College of Medicine -admissions@uiowa.edu. So you're welcome to reach out and we can get you scheduled for a one-on-one appointment. But thanks for spending time with us on this Thursday night.
Thank you. Before everybody leaves, just a few quick announcements for those who are a part of the University of Iowa MAPS members. That exec board applications are due this Saturday. And if you are interested in the CBL event, please RSVP to that event so that we kind of have an idea of who's attending. Also, one last thing, Megan and Rachel are super, super busy and their schedules are super full. And so we are super fortunate to have them here with us tonight to give this presentation. And I've already seen a few people give thank yous in the chat, but if we can once again give them a great big thank you for being here with us tonight.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. It was fun to be here. We like doing this stuff.
We do. We think it's fun. Yeah.
Well, thanks
All right.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a great night.